Hi, thanks for watching this video. I'm Jermaine
And I'm Renee.
and we're the
Macks.
Macks. So in this video we're going to talk about the time when we ran a business together.
Yes.
It was early in our relationship, right before we got married. Well, actually, since we started dating, maybe a few years in, we started to run a business together. So we're going to share our experience in that regard. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you want to join us on this journey of marriage, relationships, everything relating to just realizing your purpose as a married couple, then we welcome you to subscribe. We welcome you to share this story with anyone who would find value in it, who it will help to inspire and empower.
Okay, so we would have alluded to it in our video about the first 5 years of our marriage that we had been running a business together.
Yeah.
Now, Jermaine has always been the entrepreneur. And when I met him, he had already started running a
That's
computer.
how we met.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's how we met. He had started a computer repair business on his own while still in high school. So
Yeah.
he came to repair my computer, and that's how we met.
That's all I went to do.
Yeah, and once it is that we started dating, I started giving him support. Support.
She took over the business.
Not when we just started dating.
Yeah.
But as the years rolled by, I started to take a more active role in that business. Now, I didn't consider myself the entrepreneur per se,
Yeah.
but I do consider myself to be supportive.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that he's involved in, whatever he's doing, I am
She's
there
my biggest
cheering him
cheerleader.
on.
Yeah.
So it continued that way, even as it was leading up to our marriage and stuff like that. So before we got married, though, we had been exploring ways of growing the business.
Yes.
And
So let me, before we go to that part, what I'll say is, so when I started the business in 2003, and we met in 2003, around 2006, the business wasn't doing so great. And so I actually, Renee helped me get a job at a government agency locally. And so I was working there for a few months. At around 7 months in, I started to, fix computers for the members of staff there. And so she was like, well, this seems like something that you should be doing full time. You could be doing this full time. Because what I was doing is doing it during the day, and I was doing it on evenings and weekends. She's like, you can definitely be doing this full time. And she gave her best supplement at the time.
So it was interesting because I was torn. I am a by the books kind of girl. So, and I'm also a strong believer in if you are being paid for your 9 to 5, you need to give your 9 to 5
and I'm
your
taking
best.
on that as well now.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the time, he was kind of a little more nonchalant and kind of just like, all right, well, during my lunchtime, I'm going to go and do this thing for the business.
Pick up these parts from a supplier.
Yeah, and it would never take just his lunchtime. At the time,
Wow.
he was also just, let's just say he wasn't as organized or as disciplined as he is now. Right. And I was torn about it because I'm saying, you have this job, and I understand it's not the job that you want. It's not the job of your dreams, but it's something that you have committed to do. So if you're doing it, do
That's
it.
true.
If you're not doing it, then pursue this.
Yeah.
I'll support you in pursuing your business full time if that's really what you want to do. So that's how that came about. So
That is
within
true. Wow. Yes.
So within 9 months of starting that job, he decided, he's just gonna go full time with his business.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was still in university and supporting him on my off days and stuff. I was in university and working part time, so it wasn't a lot of time that I had in between. But whatever time I did have, I was spending with him and helping.
So I had the technical know-how, I had the skills to fix computers, had absolutely no business sense whatsoever. I
You
just
had
knew
some
how
natural
to,
inclinations.
I'd learned some bad habits, and my focus was just on fixing computers. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed working with people. I didn't think about the formal aspect of business. That wasn't an interest to me. My focus was making money. So once I decided to leave, the first thing I tried to do was raise money for the company. Actually, some of my then co-workers helped me with money to pay the rent because we had moved to, remember, the office on Dumbarton.
Right, right.
Yeah, so we got an office on Dumbarton Avenue, and we were sharing with someone, and that was an interesting time for us. It was our first time, renting a space. It's almost like I went from, having a full-time job to, going to running a full-time business. And so that came with an interesting dynamic. We were learning how we were together learning just the functions of a business.
Right.
We were wearing all the different hats and just kind of learning we're figuring things out.
Right. So we were trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
As we went along, learning how to pay our taxes as a business.
Which I still don't understand to this day.
So I took that. The things that are involved in running a business successfully. And it was a lot of trial and error at the time. Eventually, we decided to leave the office because it just wasn't sustainable.
The money didn't make sense. We were sharing the utility bill, the costs for rent each month, and the location. It wasn't ideal.
Right.
So if you know Dumbarton, in the middle of it, there's no foot traffic for customers. Having a computer business just didn't make sense. It wasn't practical for our customers.
Right, and at the time it wasn't as commercial as it is now.
Yeah.
So we decided to close that and start working from home again.
Yes.
So that was the mode of operation, working from home. He was running the business. He would take taxis to clients when necessary.
Wow. Yes. I would take a taxi everywhere.
Right.
As living in a taxi.
And that's it. That has its own costs.
Yeah.
So moving from that,
what we did, so around that time, what came after is that we moved out of our parents' house and we went to live to Padmore Drive. And we ran the business from there as well.
right.
So that was probably 2008.
It was 2008. So this was really Jermaine moving out of his
So it's
parents'
like,
house.
yo,
and
I'm ready to take care of you. I'm a man. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find the deposit and rent. I was barely able to find the first month's rent, and my dad helped me with the deposit. And while we were at Padmore, my dad paid half of the rent. Well, he paid it in that he had a grocery store. So if I paid the rent, I'd be like, Dad, I need some groceries because I need to put food in the house.
Yeah.
And so, long story there.
Yeah. And at that time, I had just completed university in 2007. I got a job and I started working at the end of 2007. December 2007 is when I started working full time, and I was working on shifts. So it was 12-hour shifts.
Yeah.
And then 2008 he moved and I was pretty much there all the time. And we were running the business from there. So as we were doing that, there was enough space. The space wasn't an issue. We hired persons. We had persons there who were working with us, and they would come in to the house office every day. And so the front of the house that we were renting was the business, and the back was our living space.
Well positioned, yeah.
Right, and that was fine for the most part. But then we said, we're doing well. We're doing pretty well. There were some partnerships in between that.
We tried our first network marketing company.
Oh goodness.
There was this one called Cyberwise.
That's not.
Oh, okay. Won't go there.
But yeah, and then we would have tried partnering with persons to bring in like large shipments of tech items, and that didn't work out well.
Wow.
So we were trying things, and if you're familiar with the fail fast theory,
We were failing
we were
fast.
failing and failing
Yeah.
fast in many different areas, but it did have an impact because we didn't understand cash flow. We didn't understand the importance of investing. We didn't understand how to manage a business well.
Yeah, we were pretty much untrained. So everything
Yeah.
that we're doing, we were figuring it. We're learning just enough to get by.
Right.
Whatever didn't work, we eventually stopped doing because we couldn't figure it out. So we were essentially two young persons, trying to run a business.
Right, trying
Yeah.
to figure it out. So, within 2008, I had the bright idea. I said, you know what? I think we should get a business space, because again, the location of the house was difficult for customers. There was no visibility.
There was no
we couldn't
privacy,
do branding. Da, da, da.
And what would happen is that customers, because they know that the office is there, customers would be showing up 11 o'clock. Hey, Jermaine, I just wanted to look at this computer for
PM.
me. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'd be working late, and it just felt like it couldn't mix having both in the same space.
Right. So we decided to separate the two, and so we did that. But in order to do that, we took a loan. No, took a loan, not just any loan, a loan shark loan, and
That's not fair to say loan shark.
okay,
I would
a
say it was
high
a
interest
personal loan.
loan.
Yes, it was a high interest
A very
personal loan.
high interest
Yeah.
loan that just really was not sustainable. Anyway, we learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
went.
So yeah, so a part of what went into us making that move, the first year of running the business from home, we were extremely successful.
Yes,
It was
that's true.
actually
The most
the
successful year
most
of the business.
the best year we've ever had.
Yeah.
So that year I was just going out. I did even deliveries as far as Portland. Cause whatever you needed, I got it for you that year.
Yeah.
And that was where we built a lot of great relationships and friendships that we have even to this day.
Yeah.
And so it felt like a natural step to get an office space, because when we were able to do, 8-figure sales from home
Mhm.
in 1 year, we're like, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
We thought it was a natural progression to get the store, then we're going to do 9 figures, and then we're just gonna get rich and retire and all of that. So
Mhm.
when we decided to get the office space, it was actually just up the road from where we lived. So we're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's easy enough. We didn't think of the disadvantages of the location again. So thinking back at it now, that's another thing that maybe we could have done differently.
There was more traffic in that location, but it still wasn't a
Yeah,
good
it was
location.
upstairs at hardware.
Right.
So customers, it wasn't a typical plaza, but for us, the trade-off was the plaza locations that we were seeing. We were seeing some ridiculous rent
Yeah, that we just
because
couldn't manage.
we looked at one location in 2008 that was for 240,000 per month.
Yeah.
We're
Crazy.
like, that don't make sense.
Crazy.
So we thought this would have us be able to separate home and business.
Mhm.
It's close to home, so we don't have to go very far, and we would have the opportunity to kind of develop. And it's okay with that we don't have foot traffic. We'll just source our customers. So that was kind of the mindset.
Right.
Um,
And so we took the loan. So we took this high interest loan to set up
so
shop,
we set
right?
up display, got inventory, things like
Yeah,
that.
we went in,
Yeah.
and I don't think it was a bad investment in terms of the things that we invested in.
We just weren't focused on the right
On the
areas for the right time. So for that
Right.
amount of money, you focus on making the business go forward and not
Right.
necessarily investing in infrastructure,
Right.
because we were now taking on new expenses. We hired
We
3
hired
to
staff.
4 more persons.
Right.
So the business itself was stretched, because even though we had such a great year, it wasn't a highly profitable year.
It was a great year for us, but it was also the year of the recession,
Exactly, which we didn't.
which we didn't understand
what
the
that
impact
meant.
of that. So going into 2009 with this high interest loan on our books now, and also the recession happening,
And staff,
and having new staff
overhead
and
expenses each month.
overheads, it was
Yeah.
not a good combination for us. And so we started feeling the impact of that really quickly. Within
Yeah.
a few months, we started
Yeah.
feeling the impact.
Because what would happen is that, and I shared this, if you follow my personal channel, I would have shared this in a video in terms of when to take a loan. I'll link it below. But we took that loan not understanding the impact to cash flow. So we were paying out a high amount each month. We had these overhead expenses. And then the country was recovering from a recession. So all of those factors kind of went into, it put a lot of pressure on me as the manager for the business to be able to find that each month. So we ended up in a cycle of taking a lot of loans.
Yes.
Which definitely, now that we thought about it, now that we think about it, put a lot of pressure on us. But
right.
we,
and so now with that, so we've given you the history.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into now the meat of how
Yeah.
it impacted our marriage.
Yeah.
So with that, with the stretch of on the business, me working full time, one of the sources of income for or loan income for the business was my salary.
Yeah.
So it was 2009 that we got married.
Yes.
October 2009. And I would have been prior to that putting money towards the business. So whatever extras would have been there.
She was our angel investor. Every spare cash we had went into that business. Whenever I needed an order to be filled and I didn't have the cash, I was like, how much we have in savings? She'd be like, we have enough to pay the bills. I say, yeah, well, I'll just fill this order, I'll get paid tomorrow and we'll cover it.
Yeah. And so there was this like juggling that he would do. And
as an expert juggler.
And I say he would do because
she wasn't comfortable at all.
I was never comfortable with that.
Yeah.
That's just not how
she
I
wanted to
operated.
have a separation.
All right. I wanted us to be able to have home taken care of. I've always wanted to ensure that our bills are paid, that we have the roof over our
And that
head.
is what led to what we shared about coming home and the lights being off.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it is that I'm working, and it wasn't a poorly paying job, I was working in a good paying job with great benefits and all of that. So I felt like
milked all of it.
I felt like there's no way that I should be earning what I earn and still be struggling. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up in my head. But I also very invested in supporting Jermaine in everything that he does and supporting the business, because this was his
My dream.
Yeah, it was his dream. So how could I not support him? And so I was torn and embattled with that internally. It was always a struggle because I wanted to be comfortable. I wanted our life. I had a vision in my head of what our life is supposed to look like, and it just wasn't getting there. And I would be constantly putting in the money, yes, but also wondering, will we ever get to a place where we're not struggling?
Yeah.
Because every year after year, we'd come to the end of the year and we'd have a conversation about what's going to happen next for the business, and when can we start putting some funds back into our savings, because our savings were completely depleted.
We had no
every
savings.
month.
What are you talking about? What savings?
Right.
It was a pan without a bottom. So keep putting in money each month and just pretty much disappeared.
Yeah, and that lack of security for me was causing anxiety and very stressful.
So when Renee spoke about the fact that, she had to just commit so much of, all the available money that she had each month would be going into the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I never fully understood or appreciated. To me, I was like, we're making a profit off each sale, so your money is not, the money is not being wasted. I didn't see it as money being wasted. What I never understood, because what would eventually happen is that we would have the money that was earmarked for bills or whatever. I pull that money, put it into a business. Even though the customer paid me back, another order would come and another order would come. So if I took $10,000 from our savings to buy a part that I sold for 13,000, I would take the entire 13, put into another order, and when that bill came to be paid for $5,000, would pay the bill, sometimes on time, other times not, because customers didn't always pay on time, and the balance didn't
Goes
go
in the
back.
business.
Exactly. So it wasn't I was pulling our savings and our resources to try to grow the business to get it to the point where I felt like it could stand on its own. I never saw it as her having to make a sacrifice. I saw it as, hey, this business will benefit the both of us.
And I
This-
think what was interesting about that is that because you were trying to have the business stand on its own, you were trying to separate home and business, and so it was the discussions around the money from my salary being put into the business were more like business negotiations
yes.
and
yes.
and more like contractual discussions. So the approach that he would take is invest this money in the
Yeah.
business and I will pay you back X% interest, da da da. So
and I didn't even make that. I didn't even honor that commitment because I wasn't able to.
right, and we didn't understand then the importance of
That separation.
oneness or just knowing that it's our money and we are working on this thing together. So though we were side by side doing it, we still had this separation in terms of whose money, like my money and his money. We still had that separation
Yeah,
that we treated
because
it completely differently.
I never gave her the freedom to make decisions with the business's money. I was like, that's mine.
Mhm.
And I still felt like she owed the business whatever money she had because it's benefiting the both of us.
Right.
So that was an interesting
Yeah.
dynamic there.
It was, and so because the conversation was one of invest your money, that's why we would have those annual conversations of, okay, so since
Yeah.
I have been investing my money,
Where's my return?
where are the returns? I'm not
Yeah.
seeing the returns. It's a
And-
year, 2 years, 3 years have passed and I'm not seeing
And
anything.
it was during those conversations where I felt she was being too black and white. I wasn't feeling like she's being understanding or, just it's a small business. It's, we don't have an abundance. Of course, I was wanting to have those conversations with my wife, not with my business partner.
And that separation we didn't understand
Yeah.
when it is business and when it is home.
Yeah.
So we would have those blends and those mixes,
Yeah.
and he's expecting wife he's expecting wifely support. I'm expecting a business discussion, but we didn't communicate those expectations with each other.
Yeah.
So then we ended up with just frustration, being angry at each other, being resentful towards each other.
Yeah.
Him thinking that I'm not being supportive, me thinking that he's not understanding how much I'm sacrificing in order to help to support this business, because not only was it a monetary sacrifice, it
It's a
was
personal,
also
yeah.
a personal and physical sacrifice for me, because after working the 12 hours, I would go to the business place and work there, be there, and trying to sort out things for the day until I would literally crash and then go home to sleep for an hour or two to get up and go back to work again. And it was taking a toll on me physically, a real
Yeah.
significant toll.
So, what would happen is that our relationship, our marriage started to become transactional.
Yeah.
So it was more like, okay, let me actually started to use Renee as a resource. So I have this gap to be filled. I need an admin for the day because my admin, naturally needs a day off every now and again. Renee, I need an admin. Okay, I need a manager while I go on the road. Renee, can you help me? And it was always this expectation that I was asking her, but I only expected one response. It had to be yes, because again, I needed to see that she was supporting me. Because if you say no, that would have been read as a lack of support.
Mhm.
So that dynamic was just very interesting, and naturally took a toll on. So when we had disagreements about maybe style of management, dealing with the issues that come with running a business, when the checks, the blank checks that I was writing with promises to persons we were borrowing from, and the obligations started to pile up on the business side, because a lot of juggling that we mentioned that I used to do, a lot of it I didn't tell her. So when we made commitments to somebody, when I needed now to pay the bill for the house, because I would have taken the money that is supposed to pay the bill and I don't have the money, I'd go to my father, I'd go to friends, I'd go to family, I'd negotiate with them too. Can I borrow some money, pay that bill, and now I now have to owe family. And one of the things that happened that I think about now is that business and the person I was at that time running that business really, really damaged and strained a lot of the relationships that I had. I was making promises to people, I was making commitments to people that I was not honoring, because I was just so laser focused on keeping the business afloat. I was trying to bail out the water faster than we were sinking. I felt a lot of pressure, I felt a lot of stress, and naturally, Renee being the closest to me, being my wife, any frustration that was there, any support that I needed, anything that I needed, whether physically, I even started to use our marriage as a source of stress relief. So I was expecting us to be able to do what we did at the office, and when I get home, I still needed to have a relaxing environment at home. So I still expected her to do her wifely duties and cook, and if it is that we needed to be intimate, she should just be ready, and whatever it is I needed her to do, she just needed, to do it. And so that naturally, started to take a toll.
Yeah, so the demands were very high. His expectations of me were very high. And after a while, I started feeling like, I cannot realistically fulfill everything that he's asking for. I cannot do it. And it led me into a state of depression for a good stretch. And I just was not functioning well. I gained 80 pounds in 3 years. It was crazy. It was a lot. And I know that several things contributed to that weight gain, the stress of everything that was happening around me, the fact that I wasn't sleeping because of all of the things that I was trying to do, all of the obligations that I was trying to fulfill.
The job her natural job in itself would have made it hard for her to get a regular sleep pattern.
Right.
Worse, whatever spare time she had was now being pulled into business.
And I just simply I was not taking care of myself. I wasn't taking care of myself physically or emotionally, and clearly not mentally, So there was all of this happening, and I was not doing well with it. And I would speak to Jermaine about it, but he couldn't see past thinking that I just wasn't being supportive. So if I was trying to share with him that I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling overwhelmed, then his takeaway was that I wasn't supporting the business. His takeaway was that I am coming at him, or I'm stressing him about the business. And for me, I just wanted to talk to my husband to share how I was feeling and what I was struggling with.
Well, what was happening, I think, is it was more of how it would be communicated. So it wasn't that she, and I mean, we both were kind of guilty of this. we didn't know the best way to communicate what we were really feeling.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
when Rennie would want to communicate being just tired, it's just it would come out as things like, so I would mention, something I want to do, like a new idea and a new product I want to buy or something I want to invest in, and it's at that point she would say, you sure we want to do that right now? Don't we have to do this? Don't we need to meet this obligation? Don't we have to do that? And I'd say, but you're like, that doesn't make sense. You're kind of shooting down the idea. We're not exploring it. Or I'd say, I want to try and work this weekend to finish up that before Monday. She's like, but Jermaine, shouldn't we just kind of take the weekend off and just rest, spend some time? You've been going really hard for the past few weeks. So it's like there were signals, but not a clear, Jermaine, I'm tired because, Jermaine, we're
Right.
overspending because. So we
Because-
we never knew how to communicate what was really happening
Right.
on both sides.
Because as you said, we just never understood it. We never took the time to understand what was happening with us to be able to say clearly,
Yeah.
this is what is happening, or this is how I'm feeling because, so that in itself, that communication barrier was a strain. Just the tiredness, the depression, the prolonged resentment
Yeah.
resentment because I felt like I couldn't keep him accountable. I felt like I couldn't talk to my husband because me asking him anything about the business, he immediately went on the defensive to say, you're not being supportive. That was like immediate response. And so I didn't know how to talk to him about the business. And I said, let me just be a meek little lamb and do what he says. And I no longer, at one point, I just stopped voicing my opinions altogether and just did whatever he said because I didn't want conflict. I didn't want any more strain on the relationship because it already felt so
And that would
stretched.
show. So what I started to see was somebody who started to pull away. So it was like, she would just say, I have to go straight home or I have to get somewhere. So it's been a rough week. I started to hear a lot more focus on work, a lot less interest in the business, a lot less, I mentioned an idea, that sounds great, go ahead, go for it. But it was almost like there was no engagement anymore. And so that started to register. At some point, what it registered as, of course, is that, okay, there's no more interest. I'm doing this on my own because, what we're saying earlier, what I was experiencing was I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was running a business that was, surging in debt. Issues with just being a manager of staff, issues with customers, issues with, at that point where, kind of every single area of the business was, in my opinion, failing because we weren't able. I was caught up in the management of the business and not the running of the business. Meaning, I was trying to be a manager who would, because I was learning about business as I was doing it. So I'm learning things like management theory, and a great manager does this and motivates his employees and all of this stuff. And I wasn't focused on what was fundamentally making the business money. And that meant the year that we had that great year, I moved away from selling. I moved away from customer acquisition. I moved away from all the things that went into running a successful business. And I started to kind of think that I just needed to manage day to day, the business will
Started to
take
run
care
it
of itself.
like a big business.
Exactly. So I thought that we made it. I thought that essentially in this state, we just need to keep the lights on because we put an ad in the yellow pages. We had a website, business, build it and they will come.
Right.
So that gave me, when I started to see her pulling away, I was like, well, clearly it means that I'll be running my business by myself from now on. That's fine. And I started to feel a separation between us.
And that would have been the case because I felt like I was competing with the business for his attention, for his love, and I felt like the way he fought for the business, he didn't fight for a marriage. So I said, you know what? He is taking all of this time to focus on him and what he wants. I need to
I'ma do me.
I need to take some time to take care of me. I realized that I was in a slump. I realized that I think I had gone to the doctor, and that's when I saw how much weight I had actually gained at the time, and that was it for me. I said, no, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep waiting on him for me to start taking care of me. So I started changing. I changed my diet at that time. I started working out, like just by going to the park
So-
and walking. That's how I started. I started doing that. I started taking more days away from the business and said to him, at this time he was in school. He started school
In 2010.
in 2010, right? And so he was doing school part-time and running the business full-time. And so I was doing those things to take care of me. And I remember in early 2012, I would have said to him that, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I am at the end of my rope, though. I can't continue doing everything that I was doing before, and I do need to take better care of me so that I can take care of us. And so I'll be taking a step back from the business. You still have my full support, but not I can't physically be there anymore.
That felt like a breakup. I remember that so clearly. We were actually at school. We were on our way to school.
Yeah.
She was dropping me off. And when she said it, it was literally like I got shot. Somebody shot me as like, okay, I'm alone. So if in my mind, her saying all the things that she was doing, trying to take more care of herself, in my mind, I read that as, okay, you found another love interest. You found someone who, it's only a matter of time. So clearly you're fixing up yourself now, or you want to liberate yourself from me, because you don't have the vision. You lack the vision to say where we can go if you just be a good wife, submit, listen to me, let me run things, and we just kind of just follow me, and we'll be fine.
And that was when we both had a skewed perception of what submission was or is.
So this was me not walking with God, not observing the laws of what the Bible says. I was just telling you what was going in my mind in that time. So I remember the day that it happened. It was like, as I said, it's a blow, and I think some resentment was building up, and on that day, it was like a big block was added on that, and my heart started to harden towards her. It was at that point that I started to speak about our marriage differently. I started to look at our issues differently. I started to just kind of, I started to just not, I wasn't in it anymore.
And our issues would overflow in public when we're around friends, around family, around customers. The issues would just spill over, and so it would make others very uncomfortable. Because there was no boundary, there was no limit on what would
I'd just be taking shots
on what would come out in public, right? And it was very hurtful for me. It was very damaging. It was very, very damaging for me, and I couldn't understand why he was being so mean and why he was being so harsh towards me. And so I started to believe that he no longer loved me, and that whatever was happening with the business was more important to him. So what also happened was that he stopped sharing about the business with me because he felt like I didn't care about the business anymore, which wasn't the case, but that's how he felt, and so there was no more talk about the business. If I ever raised the business as a point of conversation, it would immediately explode.
Shut down.
It would
Yeah.
become, it would either become an argument or it would become dead silence,
Yeah.
because there was just no desire to talk to me about anything relating to the business, and that was coming from his own hurt. So with that, there was just this great wedge that was
Yeah.
caused between us.
So both, if you look at even like everything that we've done in terms of all our stories, if you look at the story about our first 5 years, you'd have seen those two hearts, band-aid on it, kind of.
Yeah.
That was literally what was happening to both of us. Our marriage was under significant strain and pressure.
Yeah.
We were both exhibiting symptoms of depression, major insecurities that weren't being addressed, just starting to dishonor each other, dishonor marriage. I think what was happening at that point really, so in 2012, we really went through a very difficult time. But what I thought, so in 2013, Renee had to do a surgery. And, I thought, and this had to have been inspired by God, because, it was at that point when she had to do the surgery, even though she still says, routine surgery, nothing's gonna happen. I started to kind of think about, okay, what would my life be without her? I think I started to see a little bit of what she was doing and just the impact and the importance that she had in my life, because I look at that point, we knew, couples, so we knew only older couples at the time with marriages more than 20 years. We had no one our age with an example of what marriage should be. And I just felt the need to kind of close the business to spend time at home. But what that led to when I closed it was really bad depression, because when I closed it in 2013 and I went home and I was now home, it actually didn't improve things in our marriage. It actually made it worse. Because now I saw her as the reason I had to close the business. I didn't close it because it failed. I didn't close it because I chose to. I closed it because I have no choice but to do it. And so that further increased my anger, that made me even more resentful, that made me even more cold, towards her.
And I felt slighted by that because for me, I'm like, I never asked you to close your business. I never expected you to close the business. He kind of just came home one day and said, I've decided to close the business. This is the last month in operation, you are more important, and I'd rather save our marriage than save the business. And I was like, okay, are you sure you want to do this though? Because I know how much that business means to you. And he said, yes, I'm sure. So I never, at the time, I didn't expect that I would have now been blamed for the closure of the business, but that is how it went. And I continued. I was still working at the time. Was I still on shift? I was still I was still on shift at the time, and I would come home and he would just be doing nothing. He was still in school. He was still doing school part-time, and he would get up to do that. But outside of that, he was kind of just there, and it broke my heart. It broke my heart because I knew how much was in him, how much potential, how much ambition, how much is just inside of him waiting to come out. And I saw him they're so sad and depressed and angry every single day, and I didn't know what to do about it. So it was difficult because everything I said was a trigger. If I tried to comfort him, it was a trigger.
You were the trigger.
Exactly, and I never understood that at the time, that I was the problem in his mind. I was the problem, and so it just led to even more separation, because I was still on my fitness journey at the time. I said, you know what, I can't change him, but I can continue um, helping. I can continue getting better at managing my own mental health and managing my physical health. So I would just deep dive into going to the gym, working out and eating well and stuff. So I'd be going to the gym like 9 o'clock at night and spend 2 hours.
How can you not expect me to think that you have another man?
Yeah.
Like, seriously. Because I'm like, you're finding time to go to the gym. You're working out. You're losing weight. You're buying new dresses and sharing pictures and I was like, yeah. So it was only a matter of time. So I was pretty much waiting for a marriage to end.
And the truth is, it had nothing to do with anybody else but me. Because for me, going to the gym was something that I had control over. It's something that was freeing for me. It was clearing my mind. It helped me. Like, I could go there on the days that I was frustrated or angry or couldn't figure out what to do about our marriage. I would go to the gym and just kill it on the punching bag. You know, I would.
Were you punching
I
me?
would. No, I was
Were you
punching the
punching
bag.
me? So she probably pasted my picture on the punching bag and be like, pop, pop, pop.
No.
That's what you were doing.
No picture pasted or anything like that. But I would take out my frustrations in my workout, and it had a great physical effect. You know, like the body did, ready. But and it had a great impact on my mental health as well. I could think clearer. I could manage my emotions better. I was doing better overall, but our marriage was not.
Our marriage was literally left for dead.
Yeah, because the effort was being put into my individual health, but I
We
felt
were
like
both focused on ourselves.
yeah, and I felt like I couldn't break through the wall, and I didn't have the first clue how to. I mentioned us going to counseling, and it was like I don't know. It was like the worst thing in the world that I could have suggested.
Yeah.
Because it was an
Counseling?
absolute no. Nobody needs to hear our business.
No, why do we need to go to counseling when you're the problem? That's what I was thinking. So you just need to change and we'll be fine. But yes,
and so I think 2013 going into 2014, that period for us was where we were at the point where if either one of us said
the word, yeah.
Like, you don't even have to say the full divorce.
Yeah.
You said date the next one already.
Yeah.
We were just at that. We were at the brink because we had been there were these walls between us that were just not.
And so with everything that was happening at the time, with the business still, we were at like a financial breaking point as well that was impacting our marriage severely. A lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of things that were pressed down and not dealt with.
Like crazy.
Like everything that you could possibly think of that comes with that situation was happening, and we felt completely separate from each other. I felt like I was just in the marriage because I didn't want a failed marriage.
Yeah.
And so if it was to fail, I wanted her to be the one to say, let's get a divorce. I wasn't going to be the one to say it, because then whoever says let's get a divorce is the one who caused the marriage to fail. Mm-hmm. And so, we were just existing. And
yeah.
I really don't think any of our friends or family knew the extent to what we were going through. Now, we mentioned in our video last Sunday on boundaries that we would share different aspects of the story with friends, with family, but nobody knew the whole
The
picture.
full story, right?
And so I was just kind of waiting, like every day I went home, or I just be waiting for her to say I want a divorce. I was just waiting for that day, and I imagine that she thought it was a possibility from my side as well. And
And
that was pretty much where we were leading up to 2014. And we would have shared what follows. If you want to hear the next part of this story, we recommend that you check out that
the
video.
next 5 years.
The next 5 years, it's called Turning Point.
Yeah.
We link it immediately after this video, so you can check that out. So that is the story for us in terms of the impact that running a business had on our marriage.
On
Now,
ours, and it's not to say that a married couple cannot successfully run a business together. Absolutely not
yeah,
saying
because
that. We're just saying that based on where we were, who we were, the persons we were at the time, what we knew and what we didn't know, that is how everything came
Yeah.
together for us, and that is the impact that it had on our relationship.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely more to tell to the story, as in
so much.
where we are now, how we're able to deal with some of the hurt and pain that we went through, the things that we've healed from. We definitely want to get to that in another video. We've gone way too long with this one, but it's appropriate because we gave you, I think, a balanced perspective of the story.
Right.
Because and that's what we try to do with our channel. We try to be very transparent. So everything that we have shared, and we are able to share it in this way because we took the time to deal with it, and
to heal from it.
And so we hope that this encourages you if you're running a business with your spouse or you've had that challenge in the past. Let us know below what your thoughts are, how you are able to work with them.
Yes.
Maybe there's something that we could learn from you. We do
work together now.
We do work together well
on
now.
several things.
Even us running this channel together is us working together. So
Yeah.
God is good. God is good.
Is the Lord.
So we thank you so much for watching. Please do watch the video on Turning Point coming up next. And if you've watched it already, feel free to check out some other videos on our channel. We would love to hear from you on our social media pages. Follow us
there.
at Loving to the Macks. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We've started a Facebook group for empowering marriages. The link will be in the description.
Yes.
And please, share this video with someone.